This happened a week ago. Up until a few days ago, I went to a small local gym in now previous New Jersey, near a town called Black Bear. One day, I had this misfortune to run into this skinny, awkward, creepy looking guy, probably in his late teens. He didn't look like he belonged in the gym at all. I had earbuds in and was doing my set when I heard him saying something to me. It was muffled by the music. I was already annoyed with the kid. Even he was breaking an unwritten rule at the gym. Don't try and talk to someone when they're doing their sets. I took my time finishing my sets and took my earbuds out to ask him what the hell he wanted. He then started acting like I looked familiar. Right away, I knew this kid was just trying something, to be friends or something like that. I assured him I didn't know him, but the kid wouldn't stop talking to me. I didn't listen to most of the conversation, but eventually, he asked me for my Instagram and Snapchat. Weirdly, I gave him my Snapchats instead of saying, "Hey buddy, do you mind fucking off?" or "I don't have social media." After I'd given him my Snapchat, I did kind of urge him to let me do my workouts. Finally, he got the message and walked away. Not without saying bye like 3 or 4 times. That night, I got a snap on my phone saying, "From Sean." I immediately saw the snap, the whole time wondering why this kid would snap me. I opened the snap. The kid was in a creepy weird pose, and he was way too close to the camera, with his head resting on his hands and a creepy smile on his face. The text over the picture was saying "hey" with 2 Y's, which was even weirder. He knew that I was a guy, which made this even more weird. My thought process was that I've had enough of this already, and I was going to remove him and make it clear that I didn't want to talk to him. And so I did. After I'd opened the Snapchat he sent me, I got rid of him. I'm sure not even a minute later, again, a message popped up on my phone saying, "Snapchat from Sean." I waited a few minutes before opening it. This one was even creepier. Now the kid was sitting on his bed smiling, with a surprised yet angered expression. The text over the image said, "Why did you remove me?" Now, that was enough. I went as far as blocking him, meaning he couldn't snap me anymore. That was that. I put my phone on my desk and sighed with relief. A few minutes later, my phone goes off saying, "Sean added you as a friend on Snapchat." And then under that was, "Snapchat from Sean." He'd actually made a new account. I opened the snap and felt my heart drop. It was a picture of my front lawn. The text over it said, "Answer me." The first thing I could think of was, how did he find my address? Then I realised, Snapchat made that new map feature to let you see where your friends are. Somehow I had the guts to open the window to look outside. It was clear out there. I shut the window and the blinds and started considering calling 911. Then there was the sound of taps on the window. I took a deep breath, and at the same time I opened the blinds and window and pulled the kid inside my room. I punched him in the face a few times before he was out cold. Now I was definitely calling 911. By the time the police were there, he was awake and cursing me out and told me that he'd be back to kill me. The police heard it all. I didn't even have to make a case. The kid was an idiot. Luckily, the timing worked out well, because I'd just moved a couple of days ago. The only thing that worries me is, I don't want to have to make another account, but every time someone added me on the app, I'll never know if it's secretly that Sean kid. This happened a couple of months ago. I'd had my Snap Maps open to everyone, because I didn't think it would do any harm, until this happened. This guy added me on Snapchat. I can't remember his username, but from the beginning I got a bad vibe from him. His username was something creepy, and his Bitmoji was just as disturbing. But out of curiosity, I simply added him back. We started talking, and I started to feel like I was being watched, and just that sense that something bad was going to happen. Luckily nothing did. At least that first night nothing did. He stopped talking for a couple of days, and once the conversation started up again, he wanted to meet me and hang out, like right that second. Keep in mind it was like 9:30, and I know if I asked my mum she'd have said no and just looked at me funny, but I told him we could meet the following day after school. Even though we talked, I still had no clue what he looked like, because every time he snapped me, he always sent a black screen. So I told him to meet me at the old skating ring around 4:30, and when I showed up, there was no one there. So I stayed for about 20 minutes more and then went back home. As I was walking home, I felt like someone was following me. I heard footsteps that were coming in my direction. So then, I decided to take the long way back to my house, just to see if I'd lose that creep who was following me. And I thought I did, to be honest. But later on that night, I heard someone snapping pictures outside my bedroom window. And when I got up to see what it was, all I heard was footsteps running down the street. And that's when I started to get worried. Some stranger knew where I lived. About a week later, my parents and little brother left for the weekend to go on a convention for his birthday. I told them I'd stay back home and keep the house safe. Friday night was alright. Nothing out the ordinary. Saturday was a completely different story. Someone broke into my house. At like 8 o'clock at night, the silence was broken by the sound of the door swinging open, followed by the sound of footsteps. They were at first pacing round, and then I heard them going up the stairs to where I was. And while this was all happening, the intruder kept repeating that he was my stalker. I hid in my mum and dad's closet and opened the gun safe and pulled out the shotgun. As the footsteps grew closer and closer, I put my finger on the trigger. The gun was already full of ammo, so I was ready to be the only one coming out of here alive. As the door swung open, I shot the intruder in the chest, and then immediately sprinted for the phone and dialed 911. Minutes later, they came into my house and the police started asking me questions. The classic like what happened, where were you, etc. As I was looking at his dead body staring up at me, I could see the creepiness in his eyes, and then I mentioned to the police that he'd been stalking me, and how I had no clue who this was. So I asked if they could identify him. He turned out to be someone who had a criminal record of burglary and assault on multiple accounts. I was just glad I made it out of the situation alive. From then on, I've never let anyone see my snap maps, especially after me being so close to my death. This happened to me last year. I'd become obsessed with the streak thing on Snapchat that appears next to someone when you send snaps on a daily basis. So much so, I'd started sending random streaks to random people on my friends list. I had several people for these streaks and knew none of them. One day I got a request by a person called Snapfreak666. And being the unassuming Snapchat obsessive, I didn't think twice before accepting Snapfreak666 as a friend. All I did was send random pictures to the person. It could be the picture of my room, my partial reflection in the mirror, or the outside of my house. I would pretty much always just send pictures of my surroundings, because taking a random shot was a lot easier than a selfie. I'd gotten used to sending pictures of the outside of my house as well. My room window was always open, whether it was day or night, as our house had a large front area and a gate as an entrance. My window had a net, which I'd keep shut. Other than that, anyone could see inside my room. Although the angle was such that it would be very difficult for someone to peek in from outside. On this night, Snapfreak666 sent me a number, 365, decorated in order to celebrate a year worth of snaps to each other. Feeling appreciative, myself, I congratulated back. This was my first ever direct message to this person. I then got a reply from them. Congrats to you as well. You're my most streak person too. I was a bit too proud of my streak history, and informed Snapfreak that I had another friend with whom I'd already hit 500 with. Their reply was a bit worrying. I got their reply, which brought a worried crease to my forehead. That's not fucking funny. Thinking this person's idea for a joke was dark humour, I ignored the message, not having any inclination to ever message back and only stick to sending snaps. I then got another message, which I didn't check. However, the Snapchat notification continued to buzz for about a full minute with different messages. Now, I'm not going to get into them as they're quite long and I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. After I received all these messages, I tossed my phone aside. It wasn't funny in the slightest. I regretted ever adding this person to my Snapchat and tried to recall anything out of the ordinary they'd sent over the last year. Now that I thought about it, they had only ever sent pictures that looked out of a car window. I thought it was interesting because I'd got the idea this person liked to travel a lot. As this thought had entered my mind, I ignored it completely and decided to watch TV instead, hoping I'd put this behind me and distract myself. After an hour, I heard my phone ringing and remembered my mother had mentioned she'd call. I was too late to pick up the call, but noticed the front gate was open as I peeked out the window. I didn't worry though, because it was the gardener picking up his tools and stuff, I thought. But I also noticed that I got another notification from Snapfreak666. I opened the snap to see they'd sent me around a dozen of them, most of them videos. Surprise, I opened them. My breath was then caught in my throat. The first video was of a car driving down the main road in a suburban area. The next video showed the person slowly driving around the block, circling around houses and stopping every so often, zooming in on those where the lights were on. My hands were trembling by the time the next video showed the person leaving the car and making their way on road by foot. They reached a house and stopped. The camera shifted up to show the gate. I was flooded by relief, as I saw the house was nothing like mine. I just thought it was a failed attempt of scaring me. However, there was a message at the end. Show me you've deleted that person from your list, because I'll find you and delete it myself. I assumed he was talking about the person I'd hit 500 with. I didn't respond and called my parents to come home as soon as they could. They were around 2 hours away, so they told me to call the patrolling guard in the neighbourhood to keep me company until they arrived. The bell rang, and I sprang up to let the guard in through the gate. He wasn't there. Instead, I saw a box next to the gate. It was decorated, like for a special occasion, and when I picked it up, I got the unmistakable scent of frosted icing. I opened the box to find a birthday cake, on top of which rested 3 candles, 3, 6, and 5. The box fell out of my hands. I was alone out there. If that person was here, I was exposed to them. On instinct, I ran back inside and sealed the gate. My first thought was to call my parents again, but I needed to call them from my phone, which I left in my room. I reached the front door, but before I could get in, I saw a phone on the front doormat. What terrified me was the fact that it wasn't my phone. I picked it up to see the picture of a person sitting somewhere. The picture was dim, so I had to brighten the screen a bit. I almost dropped the phone in horror as I saw myself sitting on my bed. It was a picture of me. Someone had taken it from outside my bedroom window. In the photo, I was looking down on my phone, too distracted to see the person who had snapped it. I backed away in fear, not realising I was heading toward the gates I'd just barred shut. But I was too scared to go back to the front door. I had the worst feeling that person was somewhere around there. The only idea that came to mind was to run back to the window and climb in through that way. I bolted to the house and reached the window. I could see my room. As I was about to open the window net, the phone in my hand buzzed, the familiar Snapchat tune. A notification had never petrified me as much as that, because the name on the sender belonged to me. I brought my trembling thumb to open the chat. I saw a single message. I told you I'd find you. A shadow fell over my face as I read the message, and realised that the light that had been falling onto me from inside of the room through the window was now blocked. I raised my head, knowing what I would see would be one of my greatest fears. I was right. There was a man standing in there. We were only separated by the window nets between us. I stood deadly still as the man raised a hand in which I saw my phone and waved his fingers playfully at me. My shriek of terror was stuck in my throat, and it refused to let out as the man brought a knife to his lips, which were shaped with a smile stretching from one cheek to the other. He typed a message with his other hand. I looked down at the phone, and it read, "Shh." I didn't dare move. The reflection of the lights and the shiny new knife cut through my eyes. The man pressed the knife so tightly to his lips. It was as if he wanted to pierce them to taste the blood that would spill out. He turned my phone screen towards me, and I saw him press the name belonging to my friend, the number 500 accompanying the fire streak on it. Within the next couple of seconds, he deleted my friend's name, leaving Snapfreak 666 as the highest level streak. The man placed my phone on the windowsill and pointed for me to do the same. I complied. We stood there for what felt like hours before he uttered his next words. "Happy 1-year anniversary," he cackled, the way a predator would after finally capturing his hunt. I saw the knife in his hand move away from his lips. I didn't stop to see what his next intentions were. I ran back to the front gate and bolted for my life.